Go ahead.
Could it be that psychopaths have very little value for others because they have very little emotional attachment or feeling for others?
Yeah, they lack the empathy circuit. They have they lack empathy circuits.
So no values that reflect that.
So they have no values that relate to others. All their values are related to self, right? But that's because they have a damaged emotional set too, right? Psychopaths, the psychopathic brain, and I'll come to in a second if I may, there are physiological differences. If you look at a brain scan of people, you can tell which one is a psychopathic brain. And the weird part is, they themselves, I read a book recently, but written by a neuroscientist who is a psychopath, who found out by accident by looking at a picture of a bunch of brains that he was doing for another study. And he's like, oh, this brain here, oh, he's doing a study on his family in general, but this brain here, this looks like a psychopath. I wonder who this is. He looked it up and went, oh, it's me. Ha, go figure. A lot of my life makes sense now. So psychopaths aren't necessarily bad people, right? They're just driven by different things. A psychopath is driven, for example, by status, right? So they might do good things to increase their status, not because the good thing itself is worth doing it, but because everyone else seems to like it, and so why not? Do you see how that works? But there's another huge discussion that we don't need to go into here. We'll come here and then we'll move around. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know, if you go to Google and type in book by psychopath, it should come up. It's in the title. He actually expresses it. I think he's making a case for what we can learn, what value, we can learn something valuable from psychopaths, right? So I can't remember the title. It's something really provocative, like how the world would be a better place if you were all more psychopathic, or what I learned from being a psychopath, or something like that, right? Confessions of a True Psychopath, is that the one? There you go.
Confessions of a Sociopath.
Of a Sociopath? There you go. That might be a related text. Maybe his brother wrote that one. I don't know. But anyways, I have a little search in it. I have it somewhere in my notes, so I'll have to dig deep if you want an actual reference for it. I can do that. So email in if you want that, and I'll do that. But otherwise, the general principle is we're not going to derail them that too much. Go ahead.
3 questions.
Oh.
First, if somebody answers the value question the way you did,
yes,
with no effect,
yes,
does it mean that we are still in the small talk phase?
It may mean a number of things, right? It may mean that in a small talk they're being defensive. It may be that they have difficulty expressing emotion. It may be that it's not their value set. They're just telling me because I'm part of a peer group that seems to value that, so they may have to say that, right? So those are different reasons. How to deal with that we'll come on to afterwards.
Okay. Second question. I noticed that sometimes the question, what's important, doesn't provoke a higher value, but rather a description. It enables me to do so, and so. And I guess it is not a good direction to go into.
No, that's just looping. That's saying that's the values equivalent of looping, of small talk, right?
So
what do you do at that point? Number one, you can change the question. You don't have to be stuck on what's important. You can change to, for example, what does it do for you? That again can create a scenario, but it's more likely to bounce out. The simplest, the easiest way to get them out of that loop is to collect the loop and then ask the values question. So in other words, when you are doing X, Y, Z, and you're experiencing A, B, and C, what does all that do for you? What's important about all of that? That cuts through the loop. A lot of people will still try 1 or 2 loops and go, okay, that's part of that. So when all that gets combined, what does that do? It gives them a sense of globalization then. Right?
And the third question, sometimes get a negative value. I mean, it helps me to avoid something bad.
So you do exactly the same thing. So when you're avoiding that, what do you get?
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Over here, we have some patient people here.
So I did the exercise and went. Actually, the value came really quickly.
Yeah, it often does.
And he had some emotion behind it. So I'm like, well, okay, well done. And then I said, okay, let's ask some question about it and what it would do actually to the person, which actually bring out actually a better true value, which was that it was more important for that person to share that value and actually teach that value to others, so that others could actually see the actual benefit of value.
Yeah.
That was actually the true value. That was where the emotion really was.
Yeah.
So even though the value was there,
Yeah.
but it wasn't that important. The most important was actually to help people share that value.
Totally with you.
But
It
I
goes-
would not have gotten there without the questions.
Right. So it goes to Larissa's idea of the value landscape. There is a values landscape, and within that landscape there is a hierarchy, and you just went up the hierarchy. You basically broke the chain of command and went over someone's head, right? And the point here is we're not actually talking about how to use them. We're just getting familiar to finding them. When it comes time to using them, the question is, what you have in front of you right now, is it enough to do the job you have in mind? If you think it is, great, you move on. If it isn't, then you stick around and get a higher order value, one that is a long enough lever that will actually move that part of their inner world.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like the second value I found was actually much more useful. It would have allowed me actually to make
Many more changes. Absolutely,
yes.
I'm with you on that, absolutely.
So if you're interviewing your employees to try to determine their values, how many, typically, how many values would you expect a person to have? Is it just one you're trying to find? Or?
Yeah, so here's the thing. It's a good question, and that's in part of the application part, right? So first of all, it depends. Some people will have 1 or 2 core values, and that's it, and then everything else feeds through those. Some might have as many as half a dozen. If you start getting to double digits, then I think you're probably more in the value landscape rather than the actual. You're not talking to the nobility of our value kingdom. You're talking to maybe the peasants, right, or the merchants. So they're still important. They still get stuff done, but if you want the ultimate stuff done, you need to have a king, a duke, or at least a count.
And so
right?
suppose you're talking to somebody and you easily move up to happiness. Now,
Yeah.
do you stop there, or do you then try to give them a different question and find if they have another value?
It all depends on what you're trying to achieve with it. What are you trying to achieve?
I'm trying to make a happy workforce.
Right. So then, if the value is happiness, then you have to find out how do you express happiness. So what makes you happy? What kind of things let you be happy, right? Or what's important about your work? So how come you want to work here? What's important about that, right? Let me answer that question. Do you want me to do a quick demonstration to answer this question a little bit? Is that okay? It goes a bit into actually how to use them, but we might as well because that's kind of the question that you're asking. Is that all right with everyone? Yeah? I'd like to have someone who is currently an active member of the diploma school for a specific purpose. Can I use Matt? Do you want to come up? Give him a round of applause. Just pass him the mic as he comes up. Have a seat over here.
Thank you.
When did you join? Are you in the
first one.
You're in the first wave, right?
January.
Yeah. So we had the interviews beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. This is why I chose Matt, because he's going to recognize something in a moment. So let's assume you were in the first wave, which means we did the actual the interviews beforehand
Right.
to make sure you were right for the school and all that sort of stuff, right? Do you remember that phase,
Yeah,
right?
it's very starstruck.
Good. Thank you. So hopefully that's faded a bit now. Oh my God, I'm so blinded. Quickly, turn the lights up. My aura is so strong. So just put yourself back in that sort of mindset a little bit. That's just to set the context up, right? So we're on the phone call. You're applying to be part of the school, right? And my job is to see, one is to see if he fits the school, and number two, to help him make a good decision about the school. So the reason I'm doing this is I need context. Values without context are meaningless. Does that make sense, guys? Right? So we have context now, right? So the call's going. We've done our initial greeting. We've done our little small talk. This is all probably coming back to quite familiarly, right?
Yeah.
And then the first question was, or one of the first questions would have been something along the lines of, so why hypnosis? What's it about hypnosis that makes you want to take part in a school like this?
I remember that being a very difficult question to start
was.
answering.
So I'll ask you, we'll just ask us as though we're having the interview again, right? So it seems like you seem interested in hypnosis. You wouldn't join a 2.5 year school otherwise, right? What am I doing? I'm presuming value. I'm priming for value, right? So what is that? What is it that's important to you about hypnosis?
The way that I see hypnosis is that it's kind of the fundamental, I guess, phenomenon behind all of the mind.
Right. Well, you're preaching to the choir on that one, right? So if hypnosis is the fundamental structure, or what you like for the mind, right? Why? What's important about that? Why would you want to learn that?
I think to get the most out of life, we need to go to the deepest roots we can find.
Right.
Because that's where the dominoes would be the
Right.
most effective.
So it's about getting the most out of life. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're getting the most out of life through hypnosis and whatever other things you do, what does that do for you?
Well, getting the most out of life means that my experience will be its richest, its most far-reaching.
Right.
I connect with the most parts of nature and with the
Nice.
universe and with all these amazing people.
Nice.
And if I can get to the deepest parts of how those feelings come about, then I can have the most of those experiences and
Got it.
hopefully spread the most.
So it's about getting to the deepest roots of basically who you are, who someone else is, in order for you then to be able to connect to the rest of life more richly.
Exactly.
And as a result of it, your ability to enjoy life increases. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what's important about all that?
I think.
What,
I mean,
what
I
does
think
that, what does
that's-
that all do for you?
Well, from an intellectual standpoint, connection seems to be the most consistent theme I see. Things just want to link up. But then the feeling of connection is the most vitalizing I've ever found. The feeling
it.
of resonating with something, if you will.
So when you feel connected to something, whether it's a person or a beautiful scene or something like that, what does that do for you? What do you get out of that?
The most beautiful trance ever.
The most beautiful trance ever. So obviously, it sounds like hypnosis is about being able to experience and maybe even share the most beautiful trances ever for you. Is that correct?
H+.
H+. I love that. That's nice. Okay. There's a little time out here. First of all, this conversation doesn't sound very unfamiliar to you, does it? Because this is pretty much what we had, right?
If anyone's willing to hear this, I'll talk about it. So.
Yeah. So what have we established right now, right? For us in terms of the school, in terms of the interview, he's there for the right reasons, right? Do we have any reasons why he shouldn't be in the school? No, I think this is a pretty good thing. He wants to experience life more richly. And within that, we didn't explore it yet, but within that, there was hints at or about helping others do the same as well, right? You all heard those hints. We didn't follow those up. So I have information. Who here feels right now, just after this little 2-minute conversation, that you know Matt better than before? And when I say better, you can predict his behavior more easily right now than you could have done 5 minutes ago. Who here feels like that, right? Do you see how big this is? Do you see how important that is, right? Now, in terms of Matt, what just happened in terms of your enthusiasm in relation to hypnosis?
It's resparked.
It's resparked. Why, right? Because the value that drives him is connection and richness in life. Let's call those two values. They're not the highest value yet that it is possible for him, but I'd say in our kingdom, they are, if they're not royalty, they're not far off royalty, right? So they may not be a prince or a duke yet, but we're up there with the nobility, right?
If I had to consciously pick words, connection would be, if not, like maybe 2 levels down from the uppermost.
Right. You see where we're going with this? So we could tell that just because of the affect he had and the way he talked about certain things, right? But it's okay. We don't need to go any further. I could go higher if necessary, but right now it's not necessary. Why? Because what have we established? We've established that hypnosis is important. I've established that he's the right kind of person that I want to teach hypnosis to. That's important to me, right? We've established that hypnosis as a discipline has value, and I don't have to tell him, hypnosis is a really important thing. You can do lots of things with people and connect with people and make your life richer and all the rest of it. That's a sales spiel, right? And he's laughing right now because if you heard that, he'd go, yeah. I've heard it all before, right?
I do that too much.
Yeah. So instead, what have I done? I've asked him, I've started from hypnosis, because obviously he's motivated, otherwise he wouldn't be here. So we know it's important. It's presupposed in his being on the call, right? I've then gone up the value scale to find an actual strong value. The emotion lights up, and that emotion connects right back into the actual thing, in this case the hypnosis, right? So he remembers why hypnosis is important. Because sometimes we get so wrapped up in our plans, we forget the importance of our plans.